skills, of course, are the bread and butter of any counsellor. It doesn't matter what your modality is, you're going to be practicing some form of skills, and summarising is non-modality specific. We will all summarise.
It's true, Ken. It's true. And I think I'm going to be a bit controversial here. I sometimes think that when skills are taught, they may not be taught like you would teach instruments in an orchestra.
Mm.
And they're sometimes used, and sometimes, certainly when we taught counselling, we could see students using them. It was a bit of a cacophony. And what we had to do was kind of be like conductors in an orchestra and conduct them and get them to use them in harmony. And I think that the skill of summarising is a harmony skill. You see what I did there, Ken?
I like that.
It's a harmony skill. And of course, it's traditionally used at the end of a session or a series of sessions to summarise most of the content, so the client can go away with an idea of what's been discussed and some ideas maybe to think about between the sessions, and maybe things even to work on. But here's the thing, Ken. I'm not sure if you'll agree with me, or I don't know if you'll agree with me, but I think the skill of summarising is a wide skill, and it differentiates between paraphrasing in this way. Paraphrasing brings depth, so you can paraphrase back and reflect back, and you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's real processing of paraphrase. With summarising, it's a wider skill. So it's wider, and that is how you have to use it in context. I don't think, and I may be wrong, that summarising is a true process skill. It is a way of collating all the information so a client can go away and yes, feel they heard, but also have maybe some things to think about. But processing skills, things like reflecting and paraphrasing, where the person is really going deep, deep, deep into emotions, are very narrow skills. Don't know what your thoughts are on that, Ken, because I know we've never discussed it.
We haven't, and I think this is the joy of what we do, in that we get together, two peers, and we discuss a topic. And I'm with you. I'm in your camp as you were saying it. I'm I guess a visual learner in many ways, and the way I see the counselling presentation or what a client brings in, I see that as a narrative that kind of runs along, and underneath that narrative is like a river that flows, and that river that flows underneath the narrative, underneath the story that they bring, is the emotions and feelings. And it's not the story that brings them into counselling, it's the feelings that they have within. And using paraphrasing, it kind of focuses down on an area that they brought, and it keys down, like you say, it goes into depth, and it goes through the narrative, and it keys in to the flow that is underlying that. Reflecting and paraphrasing both do that. So I see the depth that you're talking about there. Now, when we look at summary, it spans a longer time frame. And it brings the breadth, as you're saying, Rory. So you've got the depth going down, and then you've got the breadth or the width of what is being brought. And it kind of ties things together. It summarizes and brings the story together. And I guess in many ways shows the speaker that we as the listener within that relationship have heard them, and that we kind of can summarize back what they've been bringing to us, showing that we've been paying attention and we've been there with them along that road. And I like that you've brought that in as being a width, Rory. What would a summary do? What does it really do?
Well, I think what a summary does is give you it's a map of where you've travelled.
Oh yes,
throughout the engagement, whether that is a single session or a number of sessions. And I'll share with the listener that when I had my counselling a couple of years ago, I went back to have some therapy. My therapist summarised at the end. However, at the end of all the sessions, she gave me a written summary of what was discussed. And I found that mightily helpful. I also found it mightily creative because it's something I'd never thought of. And at the end, she said, I've written a summary of what we discussed. And I said, oh, okay. And she gave it me, and I still have it. It still knocks around. And what was useful about that was I'm able to look at it and go, oh, that's changed a little bit. That's shifted a little bit. And oh, I don't do that anymore. Now I'm sure that if she'd have reflected back verbally, I may have forgotten. We tend to forget things, don't we? You know, humans do forget things. But having it written down, very, very useful. And also, and this is the key thing, having it written down was very, very impactful, because I was looking at the words, not listening to me recite it in my mind. So a skill of summary really is a map of where you've traveled therapeutically, either in a single session or in a series of encounters. And like with any map, you may want to kind of think, oh, I kind of like the view on that piece of the map, I'll just go there. Or you might think, oh gosh, that was mightily scary. You know, maybe I need some help again just to go and engage with that part of the map. Well, like climbing the mountain, you know, you look at the map and you think, oh gosh, it's a great mountain. I'd love to climb it, but I think I'm going to need a bit of help. So it really is very useful. Is it a topography of the session where you're looking at it in a map in relief and you can see it? Mightily helpful. But yes, as I said at the top of the piece, it's not a depth skill, it's a width skill.
I like it. I see a summary as a gift. And I think that the way you described as receiving the written summary, through the perception of the therapist you work with who was in your frame of reference receiving that, it's a gift. It's a gift that you look at today. You'll get it out and revisit it and have another look at it. And, you know, when a narrative is coming our way, when that client is talking, very often they are putting into words what they're feeling inside and what is going around and round in their head. And so often those stories can just go round and round and round in the head. Just in speaking that out, it changes the direction or the power of that story, and it infuses with the feelings, and it comes out into the therapy room, and it's perceived by an empathic other, the therapist, who receives that and then gives it back to the client, beautifully wrapped up in how they understood it in walking that road with that person. And it's a beautiful gift, because it's taking what you've been feeling, what's been going on in your head, and receiving it back in the words of another, beautifully summarized and wrapped up almost like with a little bow. That's how I kind of see a summary. It's almost a gift that is given to the client at the end of a session or a series of sessions. And sometimes you may even put a summary in partway through some sessions as a review. A review is a great time to put in a summary of what we've discussed and where we may go, and pointing in both directions within the relationship. Now, I like how you've used the map. I like how you've said that you can kind of look at that and go, oh, maybe I need to go a little bit deeper over there. Oh, look where I've come from there. That is really, really good. And another thing that it kind of shows us is that if we've got it wrong as the therapist, that summary is an opportunity for that client to go, actually, not that bit though. You know, when you've said that bit there, it's not really like that. It's like this. And it gives us an opportunity to readjust our frame of reference if we've missed something or misinterpreted something, or if we've received it in a different way than it was intended by the client, or even if we have reflected it back as the client said it, but they are now hearing it differently because it's not in their head anymore, it's coming back in another's words, they can even look at it and go, actually, it's not really like that, even if it was their intention when bringing that in. So it's a really powerful skill. It's a beautiful skill to wrap up. And I might say that if you are using a summary, which is customary to put at the end of a session to kind of wrap up what we've done, to give that map of that session, to go into that width of what the session was before that client leaves, always leave a little bit of time after it for the client to reflect on that, maybe to correct something if they feel that we might have misheard or misunderstood that. Or it might be an opportunity, as you said, Rory, for them to identify something they might want to bring at another session. Oh, yeah, you know what? When you're speaking, when we're looking at it now, I think I need to do a bit more work on my mum. I wonder if I can bring that in our next session.
Yeah, absolutely, Ken. And you know what? If I ever decided to re-engage with therapy, I would take that summary written by my former therapist back to my new therapist as a starting point. That was the map that I left with. And I would take it back and I'd say, you know, this is what I discussed in my last therapy encounter. And, you know, these are the things that have changed, but maybe these are the things that have altered that I want to look at. It's such a valuable, valuable tool. And I can't say enough. I never, ever considered, because I don't particularly like writing things down because I'm dyslexic, not a great writer of things. But I would certainly, if a client wanted to, make the effort just to give them a written summary at the end, as something they can take away. They've got a little map in their pocket, written by them. I mean, they narrated the view. I just wrote down what they said, and then if they ever go to therapy again, they could look at it and go, you know, that's changed. I think summarising is a fantastic skill for reflection at distance.
Ooh,
So that when the client is kind of thinking either in between the sessions, you know, because we know a lot of change, movement, and process goes on in between sessions. So either in between sessions or at the end of a series of encounters, they can have a look. And you know, the truth of the matter is, maybe even through a series of encounters, some things are still prominent. Some difficulties are still there that can happen, and it gives the person the opportunity to look at that and say, well, I did a little bit of work on that, but you know, maybe I need to see how that goes and re-engage with therapy at some point. And you know, maybe that's a starting point. Very, very useful map of our emotional journey through the arc of therapy.
I love that. You've just used such beautiful words to describe what is in fact a summary, and a summary is really a summary. But when we're talking about counseling skills, they're often not as they immediately appear. So if you were doing a summary of a book, for instance, you would summarize the story of the book. There it is. But when we're doing a summary and using that as a counseling skill, it's not just the story that we're summarizing. We are touching in on the emotions that have presented as well. And I think that's the skill, the real skill in a summary, is capturing the essence of what the person brought by going beyond the narrative, or you said this and then you said that and then you brought this and then you said that. That would be a very basic summary. And maybe as we kind of start learning counseling skills and practicing them with our peers during our studies, that's how we might summarize back. But a seasoned counselor, somebody with the wisdom of many years of practice, would be summarizing back and really handing the emotions as part of the words that are given. So those words would be the narrative, but they would be so intertwined with the emotions. So that as this client leaves, and as you said, Rory, so often the process is between sessions, they leave with this neat little package. When they look at it, they can, yes, see their story. They know that somebody really listened to them, bothered to really hear them, and reflect that back so they know they've been heard. And there's these little invite mats that are strewn across this summary, little invite mats of, maybe I can go a little bit deeper here. Maybe I can look at that. I'm so glad I managed to overcome that. It really is a powerful, powerful skill. I think all the counseling skills are powerful. I often say, Rory, you know, we talk about basic counseling skills and an advanced counseling skill. And I've been thinking about this recently, and I don't know that there is an advanced counseling skill. And I know that some skills do fall into the advanced category. So before we get all the letters in, I'll put that in there. But I think the skill of silence is an advanced counseling skill in the hands of a seasoned professional counselor who has the experience and wisdom to go behind what may be perceived as a basic counseling skill of just being quiet, you know, and all the counseling skills, it's the advancedness comes from the practitioner. The skills are the skills, and we all practice them and identify them as the self. But the deeper the relationship, the more empathic we are able to be, the more in tune with the client we are able to be, then the more advanced the use of the skill.
Yes, and I'd second that, Ken. It's not the skills aren't the advanced part; it's the use and delivery of them.
Yes,
That's the key element here. So it's like having a guitar. If I had a guitar in my arms, the guitar is the guitar, and it would sound awful because I cannot play the guitar. But if you give it to someone who can play the guitar,
yeah,
and there's the skill. It's the skill of using the skill, not particularly the skill. And you know, when we're thinking of summarizing, it's really interesting. I've just done another piece of personal development work, and we were asked to summarize ourselves in our own words. And that was really, really interesting because that was really person centered. It wasn't therapy. I had some coaching. And what happened was I found myself writing stuff down. And as I'm writing them, I'm going, oh, right, yes. It was one of those, it was a very, very strange sensation of having to think about the session and then writing down in my own words. And the person who's working with me said, so this is what you're saying, Rory. I'm saying, yes, this is what I'm saying. And I have to wonder, after I left that encounter thinking, do you know, I wonder if that would work in therapy, just to ask, depending on the client. Some clients may be in a not in a state where they could recollect, but I think there's a principled argument to say, you could say to a client, you know, if you were to summarize this session and where you are now, what would that be? And they could say, well, I've looked at this and I've decided that. And that adds to the collaboration and the empowerment within the relationship. I felt very empowered. Yeah.
I love how you've linked that into that personal development and recognizing the development in self. And I guess in a way, journaling is a way of us summarizing where we might have been that day, what we might have felt that day, or what we might have felt the day before if we do our journaling in the morning. And I like it. I like the idea of handing that over to a client, Rory. Ooh, there's so much that's unlocking here.